Welcome to World Today. My name is Mark Lynn. So on the show this evening, the India-Sweden bilateral summit, Pope Francis's visit to Iraq, and the global COVID update as countries impose a second set of measures to curb the virus's variants from spreading. But first, our headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a virtual summit with his Swedish counterpart Stefan Löfven, and says that the world today needs cooperation, coordination and collaboration of like-minded countries to win over the pandemic. Reiterates India's commitment to the Paris Accord. The Swedish Prime Minister says that climate change is an important bilateral as well as global issue. Myanmar is on the edge. Diplomatic revolt against the junta widens after violent crackdown. Police officers from the coup-hit Myanmar are seeking refuge in India. The United States has strongly condemned the use of violence in Myanmar by the security forces and condemned the arrest and detention of journalists. Pope Francis is in Iraq, and this is his first international visit since the start of the pandemic, and is also his first ever, it's the first ever papal visit, in fact, to that country. Baghdad welcomes the Pope amid nationwide curfew. Leaders of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue are all set to hold their first summit in a virtual format this month. The US President Joe Biden, the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Prime Minister of Japan Yoshihide Suga will participate, and there's no schedule, in fact, which has been announced so far for this summit. Our top story: Prime Minister Narendra Modi held a virtual summit with the Prime Minister of Sweden, Stefan Löfven, and Prime Minister said that the issue of climate change, it's important for both India and Sweden. Prime Minister also said that India will not only achieve the Paris Agreement targets, but will also exceed them. And he added that perhaps India is the only G20 country, is what the Prime Minister said, which has made good on its commitment.
क्लाइमेट चेंज का महत्वपूर्ण मुद्दा हम दोनों देशों के लिए एक प्राथमिकता है और हम इस पर आपके साथ काम करना चाहेंगे। भारत की संस्कृति में पर्यावरण के संरक्षण और नेचर के साथ हार्मनी में जीने पर हमेशा महत्व दिया गया है। हम पेरिस एग्रीमेंट में किए गए अपने कमिटमेंट पर दृढ़ता से आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। हम इन टारगेट्स को न सिर्फ अचीव करेंगे, बल्कि उन्हें एक्सीड करेंगे। G20 देशों में शायद भारत ही अपने कमिटमेंट पर अच्छी प्रोग्रेस कर पाया है। पिछले 5 सालों में हमारी रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी पावर क्षमता 162% बढ़ी है।
And Prime Minister also welcomed Sweden's entry into the International Solar Alliance. He invited Sweden to join the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure.
इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस में स्वीडन के शामिल होने की घोषणा का हम स्वागत करते हैं। हम आपको कोalition फॉर डिजास्टर रेजिलिएंट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर शीघ्र ज्वाइन करने के लिए भी आमंत्रित करते हैं।
And the Prime Minister also said that India and Sweden can play a major role in the post-COVID recovery scenario. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that both countries can enhance their cooperation in various fields, including innovation, technology, investment. He talked about startups and research sectors as well.
Post-COVID stabilization और रिकवरी में भारत स्वीडन पार्टनरशिप एक अहम भूमिका अदा कर सकती है। हम इनोवेशन, टेक्नोलॉजी, इन्वेस्टमेंट, स्टार्टअप्स और रिसर्च के क्षेत्र में आपसी सहयोग को और गहरा कर सकते हैं। स्मार्ट सिटीज, वाटर ट्रीटमेंट, वेस्ट मैनेजमेंट, सर्कुलर इकोनॉमी, स्मार्ट ग्रिड्स, ई मोबिलिटी, डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन इत्यादि अनेक क्षेत्रों में भी आपसी सहयोग बढ़ाने का अच्छा पोटेंशियल है।
Prime Minister also said that India has extended medical as well as other assistance to over 150 countries during the pandemic. Prime Minister Modi added that through online training program, India has provided the best experiences, India's experiences with the frontline health workers, the policymakers in Asia, in Southeast Asia and African countries. Prime Minister also said that India has provided made in India vaccines to around 50 countries so far.
विश्व को कोविड-19 पैंडेमिक के खिलाफ लड़ाई में सहयोग देने के लिए भारत ने 150 से भी ज्यादा देशों को दवाएं और अन्य जरूरी उपकरण उपलब्ध कराए। साथ ही हमने ऑनलाइन ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स के द्वारा एशिया, साउथ ईस्ट एशिया और अफ्रीका के फ्रंटलाइन हेल्थ वर्कर्स और पॉलिसी मेकर्स के साथ अपने अनुभव साझा किए। हमने अब तक लगभग 50 देशों को मेड इन इंडिया वैक्सीन भी उपलब्ध कराई है और आने वाले दिनों में और भी अनेक देशों को वैक्सीन की सप्लाई करने के लिए हम प्रतिबद्ध हैं।
The Swedish Prime Minister Stefan Löfven stressed on the need for strengthening multilateralism, and he said that health, innovation, the green recovery, these will be pivotal in rebuilding society, which should serve as the cornerstone of a partnership between India and Sweden.
We must strengthen multilateralism. The cooperation between Sweden and India is an excellent example of that kind of collaboration across borders that is now needed. I firmly believe that health, innovation and green recovery will be pivotal in rebuilding our societies, and this should serve as the cornerstone of our partnership looking ahead now.
Moving on to our next story, well, police officers from the coup-hit Myanmar, they are seeking refuge in India rather than carrying out orders of the military government there. At least 19 Myanmar police officers have crossed over into India fearing persecution for disobeying orders. This and more in this story.
Myanmar is on the edge with tussles over diplomatic loyalties overseas. Pro-democracy activists held demonstrations again in Myanmar on Friday to oppose the February 1st ouster of the elected government of Aung San Suu Kyi. A big crowd marched peacefully through the second city of Mandalay, chanting, "The Stone Age is over, we're not scared because you threaten us." There was no immediate sign of a police effort to block them, but in the main city of Yangon, police fired rubber bullets and stun grenades to disperse protesters who had been joined by about 100 doctors in white coats. Now police officers from coup-hit Myanmar are seeking refuge in India. 3 Myanmar police constables have crossed over to India's northeastern state of Mizoram to seek refuge rather than carry out orders given by the military government. At least 19 Myanmar police officers have crossed into India, fearing persecution for disobeying orders. United States strongly condemned the use of violence in Myanmar by security forces and is saddened by the death of demonstrators. State Department spokesman Ned Price said on March 4th, adding that Washington will take further action in response to the rising violence in the aftermath of the coup.
We are deeply saddened by reports that security forces killed as many as 24 people yesterday, March 3rd. We strongly condemn the use of violence by Burmese security forces against the Burmese people, including peaceful protesters, journalists, and civil society. We continue to urge the Burmese military to exercise maximum restraint. This latest escalation in violence demonstrates the fact of the junta's complete disregard for their own people, for the people of Burma. It is unacceptable, and the world will continue to respond. The United States will continue to respond. We'll continue to respond in tandem with our partners and allies around the world. There will be additional action on the part of the United States.
The US has also condemned the arrest and detention of journalists in Myanmar. Ned Price called upon the military to immediately release the journalists.
We are deeply concerned about the increasing attacks and arrests of journalists. We call on the military to immediately release these individuals and to cease their intimidation and harassment of the media and others who are unjustly detained for doing nothing more than their job, for doing nothing more than exercising their universal rights.
Myanmar's junta lost tug-of-war over leadership of its UN mission in New York, and the United States unveiled new sanctions targeting military conglomerates after the deaths of dozens of civilians protesting against last month's coup. On Thursday, police broke up rallies with tear gas and gunfire in several cities, but their crackdown was more restrained than on previous day, when the UN said 38 people were killed in the bloodiest day of protests. UN Human Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet demanded security forces halt what she called was their vicious crackdown on peaceful protesters. Bachelet said more than 1,700 people had been arrested, including 29 journalists. The UN human rights investigator on Myanmar, Thomas Andrews, urged Security Council to impose global arms embargo and targeted economic sanctions on the junta. But will all these help in ending political crisis in Myanmar or not remains to be seen. With Bureau Inputs, World Today Desk, DD India.
Pope Francis landed in Baghdad on Friday for his most risky foreign trip since his election in 2012, saying that he felt duty-bound to make this emblematic visit because Iraq has suffered so much for so long. And an Alitalia plane carrying him, his entourage, a security detail, and about 75 journalists touched down in Baghdad at the international airport there, slightly ahead of schedule. And Iraq is deploying thousands of additional security forces and the personnel there to protect the 84-year-old Pope during the visit, which comes after a spate of rocket and suicide bomb attacks raised fears of his security. During the trip, Pope Francis will visit the former Islamic State stronghold of Mosul, where churches still bear the signs of conflict. He will also visit Ur, the birthplace of Prophet Abraham, who is revered by Christians, Muslims and Jews, and meet Iraq's top Shiite Muslim cleric, Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani. About 10,000 security forces have been deployed to protect the Pope amid a deteriorating security situation in that country. The number of people who will be able to see him has been severely limited because of the coronavirus restrictions. It is his first trip outside of Italy since November 2019, when he had visited Thailand and Japan. 4 trips planned for 2020 were cancelled because of COVID-19. The leaders of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, or the Quad, they are set to hold their first summit in a virtual format this month. The Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison said that he looks forward to this meeting. The meeting will see the US President Joe Biden, the Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the Prime Minister of Japan, Yoshihide Suga, meeting and virtually. However, no schedule has been announced for this important meeting thus far.
Is very central to the United States and our thinking about the region, and looking at the Indo-Pacific also through the prism of our ASEAN partners and their vision of the Indo-Pacific. So yes, the Quad is very central in re-engagement in multilateral organisations, particularly in the Indo-Pacific, is key to building stability and peace in the Indo-Pacific. We share that view, we encourage that view, and we strongly welcome that view, and so I am looking forward to that first gathering of the Quad leaders. It'll be the first ever such gathering. This will become a feature of Indo-Pacific engagement. But it's not going to be a big bureaucracy with a big secretariat and those sorts of things. It'll be 4 leaders, 4 countries working together constructively for the peace, prosperity and stability of the Indo-Pacific, which is good for everyone in the Indo-Pacific.
The UN General Assembly adopted by consensus a resolution sponsored by India and supported by over 70 countries, declaring 2023 as the International Year of Millets, or coarse grains, aimed at raising awareness about the health benefits of the grain and their suitability for the cultivation under changing climatic conditions. The resolution, titled International Year of Millets 2023, was initiated by India with Bangladesh, Kenya, Nepal, Nigeria, Russia, as well as Senegal, and co-sponsored by over 70 countries. Prime Minister Narendra Modi tweeted saying India is honoured to be at the forefront of popularising millets, the consumption of which furthers nutrition as well as food security and the welfare of farmers. This also offers research and innovation opportunities for agricultural scientists as well as startup communities. He expressed gratitude to all the nations who have initiated and co-sponsored the resolution on International Year of Millets at the United Nations. The Prime Minister added that distinguished delegates were also served delicious millet murukku, and this is one snack that the Prime Minister said he relishes, and he urges all of us to try it as well. Let's take a look at the COVID update from across the world. So far, over 11 crore 62 lakh 93,000 people have been infected with COVID-19 globally. This tally of recoveries stands at 9 crore 19 lakh 50,000, and COVID-19 has claimed 25 lakh 83,000 lives worldwide. The US is the worst hit country from COVID-19. More than 2 crore 95 lakh 26,000 cases have been reported from the United States, and the country's fatalities have crossed 5 lakh 33,000. So in news from the United States, the White House on Thursday said that the US President Joe Biden's remarks on Texas and Mississippi officials lifting restrictions on mask mandates were a reflection of his frustration and exasperation. Texas on Tuesday lifted a mask mandate and allowed most businesses to open at full capacity from next week. Biden on Wednesday said that the decisions to end the required wearing of masks amounted to Neanderthal-like thinking, and given the rising deaths toll from the coronavirus pandemic.
Yesterday was a reflection of his frustration and exasperation, which I think many American people have, that for almost a year now, people across the country have sacrificed. And many times they haven't had information they need from the federal government. They haven't had access to a greater understanding of what the public health guidelines should look like. He believes that with more than 500,000 Americans' lives lost, with families that continue to suffer, that it's imperative that people listen across the country, whether they live in a red state or a blue state, to the guidance of public health experts. He believes that if we're going to get this pandemic under control, we need to follow public health guidelines. He simply was asked the American people to abide by wearing masks for 100 days. We're at about day 40. Are we at day 40? Around there. 60 more days. That's what he's asking, and he's certainly hopeful that businesses and people across the country will continue to do that.
Zimbabwe has on Thursday approved the Made in India coronavirus vaccine Covaxin, and with this, Zimbabwe has become the first country in Africa, in the continent of Africa, to approve this vaccine, which is developed by Bharat Biotech International Limited. The Indian Embassy in Zimbabwe made the announcement on Twitter, saying that the country is trying to get the vaccine at an early date. So India has been sending consignments of vaccine doses to several countries under its Vaccine Maitri initiative. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Thursday said that Israel, Austria and Denmark will establish a joint fund for research and development of COVID-19 vaccines. Netanyahu has made Israel's inoculation program a showcase of his campaign for the March 23rd election.
We're going to do a joint R&D fund and discuss the production, the possibility of joint investment in production of facilities for vaccines. I think this is great news, and I think it reflects the respect we have for each other and the belief, the confidence that we have in working together to protect the health of our peoples.
President Joe Biden of the United States on Thursday said that he continues to speak with Republican lawmakers in that country about his proposed COVID relief package. The U.S. Senate is beginning to debate the $1.9 trillion bill. The Senate voted on Thursday to take up Biden's top legislative priority, The relief bill includes funding for vaccines and medical supplies. It extends jobless assistance as well as provides a new round of emergency financial aid to households, to small businesses and the state as well as local governments.
I've been talking to a lot of my Republican friends in the House and the Senate, continue to do that, and we've have a number of meetings with Republicans on the coronavirus bill, and House, Senate, a combination of both, so we're keeping everybody informed.
Rio de Janeiro, the second largest city in Brazil, will be the latest to adopt new COVID-related restrictions, including a night curfew from today. The new restrictions have been imposed to curb a deadly second wave of the coronavirus that's ravaging the South American country. The city will impose a curfew from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. and order restaurants were to be closed from 5 p.m. The new restrictions are due to last through till the 11th of March. The French Prime Minister Jean Castex on Thursday said that France will extend COVID-19 weekend lockdowns to the region around the Channel Coast town of Pas de Calais and following similar lockdowns around Nice and Dunkirk. He also said that the Aisne and Aube, a series of high alert departments, but added that there was no need for weekend lockdowns there at this stage. We're going across now live to the Ministry of External Affairs to listen to the briefing.
क्या इंडिया ने इंग्लैंड को इस मसले में कोई बात की है?
नरेंद्र नाथ जी, जैसा कि आपको पता ही होगा, विदेशों में स्थित सभी भारतीय मिशन भारत में होने वाले घटनाक्रमों की सही जानकारी वहां की सरकार और वहां के लोगों को उपलब्ध कराने के लिए काम करते हैं। और इसी संदर्भ में लंदन में हमारा जो उच्चायोग है और हमारे जो काउंसलेट हैं बर्मिंघम में और एडिनबरा में, उन्होंने यूके की सरकार, यूके के सांसद, सिविल सोसाइटी सभी से फार्म बिल को लेकर, तीनों फार्म बिल को लेकर तथ्य को उपलब्ध कराए हैं। और साथ साथ जो भारत सरकार के व्यापक प्रयास हैं इस फार्म बिल को लेकर किसान यूनियनों के साथ बातचीत से इस मुद्दे का हल निकाला जाए, उसके बारे में भी जानकारी दी जा रही है।
Sandeep from Tribune is asking, with Quad expanding its agenda to include climate change, etc., is India looking to do likewise in its other trilaterals with NATO members and US allies?
Sandeep, without getting into the specifics of discussions in other meetings and various other mechanisms, what I'll tell you is that, of course, you would know that there is a growing recognition that India is a leader in climate action. We are the only country on track among the G20 nations to meet our climate change mitigation commitments. We are not only meeting our Paris Agreement targets, but we are also likely to exceed them. We consider climate change as a serious threat, and of course, therefore, this is an area of cooperation with our key partners.
Pranay from ABP News is asking, क्या भारत में प्रस्तावित ब्रिक्स विदेश मंत्रियों की आगामी बैठक की तारीखें और फॉर्मेट तय हो चुका है? क्या इसके लिए चीन के विदेश मंत्री को न्योता भेजा जा चुका है?
प्रणय, आपको ज्ञात होगा कि हाल में ही विदेश मंत्री ब्रिक्स की वेबसाइट का उद्घाटन किया और इस वेबसाइट पे जो प्लान ऑफ एक्शन के को लेकर जो कैलेंडर ऑफ एक्टिविटीज हैं उसको हाल ही में रिलीज किया गया है और ब्रिक्स के होने वाले मीटिंग्स, इवेंट्स, इन सब का अपडेट आपको इस वेबसाइट पे मिलता रहेगा, तो आप कृपया इस वेबसाइट को देखें, ये जानकारी इस पे उपलब्ध करा दी जाएगी।
Sandeep from Tribune is asking, have the Indian missions in Canada and Australia taken steps to quell infighting among Indian groups over farm bills? Shrinjoy from Times Now is asking, has India spoken with Canada about attacks on people of Indian origin? What assurance has Canada given to India?
I had briefed last time about the situation in Canada in this respect, and we have come across reports of threats and intimidation to some members of the Indian community in Canada from certain fringe elements there. We took this up with the Canadian authorities both in Ottawa and in New Delhi and requested them to take steps to ensure the safety and security of Indian citizens in Canada. We have advised our nationals to report any such incidents to the local police as well as to bring it to the immediate attention of our High Commission as well as of our consulates. And this applies to such situations if they arise in other countries also.
That was Mr. Anurag Srivastav, the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, taking questions from the press regarding India's external relations. Moving on then to our next story. The death toll due to COVID continues to rise in Mexico. The country's health ministry data on Thursday showed 822 new deaths from the virus, taking the total confirmed toll in the country to 1,88,866. Amid this, Mexico has started to vaccinate its elderly population, and around 2.5 million people have been inoculated in that country. And now let's take you through what's making headlines across the globe.
Security was intensified at the US Capitol in Washington after police warned that a militia group might try to attack it to mark a key date on the calendar of a baseless conspiracy theory. A deadly assault took place at the US Capitol earlier in January after insurrection by Trump supporters. Department of Homeland Security and Federal Bureau of Investigation issued a bulletin on Tuesday saying an unidentified group of militia violent extremists discussed plans in February to take control of the US Capitol and remove Democratic lawmakers on or about March 4th. Family and friends paid their last respect to 5 Bolivian college students who died after falling from the 4th floor of a university building in El Alto. Bolivia's second largest city, tearful relatives gathered at the cemetery El Alto over wooden coffins of students who demanded justice for the victims. The accident occurred on Tuesday in the university's Financial Science building, where students were gathered to attend an assembly. At least 8 people are reported to have fallen. The Guatemala Met Institute has warned that incandescent volcanic blocks could rain down on nearby towns after one of the Central America's most active volcanoes, Pacaya, erupted on 3rd of March, expelling lava for several hours. Officials stopped short of ordering evacuations, relatively mild blasts ejecting burning cinders and lava bombs. Pacaya experienced some minor activity for a month before erupting on Wednesday. The 13 parties charged by New Zealand's workplace regulator over the deadly White Island volcanic eruption appeared in Auckland court for the first time on Friday. A surprise eruption on White Island, also known by its Maori name, Makari, on December 9, 2019, killed 22 people and injured dozens. There were 47 people on the island, mainly tourists, when the volcano erupted. WorkSafe, New Zealand's primary regulator for the workplace-related incidents, found that 13 parties had not met their health and safety obligations in taking the tourists to the White Island. A strong 7.2 magnitude earthquake struck off the east of New Zealand's North Island on Friday, prompting a tsunami warning that was later withdrawn by Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. However, authorities advised residents to stay alert. Big surge of waves can be seen in coast of New Zealand's Tokomaru Bay on Friday. There were no immediate reports of damage, but National Emergency Management Agency advised people in some coastal areas to move immediately to high ground. World Today Desk, DD India.
Well, let's now turn the pages of history and see what major events took place on this day in Today in History.
It was on this day in 1133 when Henry II, King of England, was born in Maine, which is now in France. Henry II served as the Duke of Normandy from 1150 and King of England from 1154. As the King of England, he greatly expanded his Anglo-French domains and strengthened the royal administration in England. Renowned author and illustrator Howard Pyle was born on March 5th in 1853 in United States, Washington. Pyle is best known for his work The Merry Adventures of Robin Hood, written in 1883. He also wrote some other children's books such as Pepper and Salt, The Wonder Clock and The Garden Behind the Moon. On March 5th in 1868, the impeachment trial against the 17th US President Andrew Johnson began in the Senate, where Republicans held more seats than the two-thirds majority required to remove Johnson from office. The former US President was acquitted of all charges when the trial concluded on May 16. It was on March 5th in 1953 when Joseph Stalin, leader of the Soviet Union since 1924, died of a heart attack in Moscow. Stalin is remembered as the man who saved his union from falling into the clutches of Nazis. Stalin was in power for 29 years. After his death, the Chechens were allowed to return home. On March 5th in 1963, the hula hoop, a hip-swiveling toy, was patented by Wham Ho's co-founder Arthur Spud Mellin. Wham Ho started selling the toy in 1958, which gained a huge popularity among children in America alone. An estimated 25 million hula hoops were sold in its first 4 months of production. World Today Desk, DD India.
And here's your daily fix of offbeat, funny and unique stories in Beyond Headlines.
Scientists have spotted a planet orbiting a star relatively near our solar system that may offer a prime opportunity to study the atmosphere of a rocky Earth-like alien world, the type of research that could aid the hunt for extraterrestrial life. The researchers said that the planet, called Gliese 486b and classified as a super-Earth, is not itself a promising candidate as a refuge for life. It is thought to be inhospitable, hot and dry like Venus, with possible rivers of lava flowing on its surface. However, its proximity to the Earth and its physical traits make it well suited for a study of its atmosphere. Complete immersion into the chilly northern art is inevitable as an unusual exhibition in the Russian northern West Karelia region, as it is set under the ice of the White Sea. At the end of February, photographer Viktor Lagushkin and artist Denis Lotarev brought their pictures, paintings and sculptures to the frozen sea to put them into the water. To see the exhibition, visitors have to put on a diving suit and brace temperatures close to 0 degrees Celsius. Japanese supercomputer simulations have shown that wearing 2 masks gives limited benefit in blocking viral spread compared with one properly fitted mask. Researchers used the Fugaku supercomputer to model the flow of virus particles from people wearing different types and combinations of masks. The study reveals that wearing 2 non-woven masks isn't useful because air resistance builds up and causes leakages around the edges. When Hussein Hamzeh saved his first stray dog 15 years ago, he knew he had found his passion and wanted to dedicate his life to the loyal pets. He's since been helping dogs around his house or asking friends to adopt them. The farmer, a 50-year-old single man, considers every dog in his shelter to be his child. His shelter is now home to 350 dogs. The majestic sight of elephants roaming beneath Mount Kilimanjaro has long lured throngs of wildlife lovers to Amboseli National Park on Kenya's border with Tanzania. But with electric fences installed with the aim to build nurseries with the intention to grow avocados, whose popularity is growing worldwide, the ability of elephants to move freely may be under threat. Hence, the dilemma is never ending. In Palestine, 65-year-old Taysir Abu Dan, who lives in the Khan Yunis refugee camp with 15-member family, is using his rooftop to grow produce, which he sells to support his family. Due to prevailing economic crisis because of the pandemic, Abu Dan uses every inch of space available to him for his small project in order to provide for his family. Even in normal times, Dr. Meenakshi Maurya, a specialist at the Department of Anesthesia, is busy enough, juggling between a demanding job at Delhi Safdarjung Hospital and looking after her 2 autistic children at home. For weeks at the peak of the virus spread in India last year, Maurya says she was unable to meet her children as she worked long and daunting hours. Maurya's personal ordeal had also become an inspiration for fellow medical workers at the hospital. A mall in Bahrain has been letting food trucks and stalls feeling the financial pressure of the COVID-19 pandemic, use its car park for free in an effort to boost local businesses. Al Aali Mall in the capital Manama has removed outdoor food vendor rental charges this winter. Vendors said a space would normally cost around $2,500 a month, but this comes as a much needed respite for the vendors. A group of actors dance in a ring of ultraviolet light projected onto a square in Rotterdam from a glowing black orb suspended above them. Able to forget the pandemic for a short while, they wear no face masks and do not observe social distancing rules. Dutch designer Daan Roesegaard's Urban Sun installation harnesses ultraviolet light to reduce the amount of coronavirus in the air. He hopes to set up his installation at dance festivals in the summer as COVID-19 restrictions ease. Around 30 amateur skateboarders gathered at a downtown gallery house in Cairo, showing off their jumps and flips and competing for up to 10,000 EGP in first prize money. Dubbed Mind the Gap, the event saw over 40 participants. The idea behind it was to promote skateboarding in the country. World Today Desk, DD India.
Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will receive the CERA Week Global Energy and Environment Leadership Award and deliver the keynote address at the Cambridge Energy Research Associates Week 2021 via video conferencing. The CERA Week was founded in 1983 by Dr. Daniel Yergin, and it is considered the world's premier annual energy platform. CERA Week 2021, it's being convened virtually from the 1st of March to the 5th of March. And the CERA Week Global Energy and Environment Leadership Award, it was instituted in 2016. It recognizes the commitment of leadership on the future of global energy and environment and for offering solutions and policies for energy access, affordability and environment stewardship. And we have with us Mr. R.R. Rashmi, who is a distinguished fellow at TERI, to be with us. Thanks, sir, for being with us. Also, former Special Secretary in the Ministry of Environment. Tell us the importance of this award. Put it into context for us, because India has, since Paris, since the Paris Climate Accord, spearheaded a total shift in its energy policy, which is catching on in the rest of the world as well.
Thank you. This award actually is a recognition of India's commitment to the global attention about climate change and the way India has addressed this huge problem. The Prime Minister Narendra Modi has actually shifted the entire emphasis away from mere platitudes to actual actions. He has announced an ambitious action for advancing renewable energy capacity creation in India, which is absolutely fantastic, and no other country has actually equaled the record in the recent times. He was also instrumental in setting up the International Solar Alliance, along with French President Emmanuel Macron in the wake of the Paris Agreement in 2015. And this ISA is now headquartered in India. So this actually, this award recognizes that India has shown exemplary commitment to the issue of addressing climate change through emphatic actions. India has now announced an ambition of setting up 450 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. And in fact, out of that, 175,000 is to be achieved by 2022. And in the last 10 years, from 2014 to 2020, there has been a 10 times jump in the solar and in the renewable energy capacity in India. And there are other areas where India has made substantial progress. The cost of solar energy, in fact, has now fallen much below the coal-fired electricity produced by coal-fired power stations. Prime Minister has also single-handedly, focused the government's actions on environmental actions. He has talked about removing single-use plastics. By 2022, this target is to be achieved all over the country. In the last Convention of Biodiversity conference, he also announced land degradation restoration target of 26 million hectares by 2030. So in all areas of, whether it is environment, and in other fields or in energy, he has announced quantified targets which put India at a totally different pedestal compared to the rest of the world. And it shows India's commitment amongst the developing countries to a future based on renewable energy. And that's what this award recognizes, because India, which is home to the largest democracy in the world, it has 1/5 of the population, and today it is the third largest emitter in the world in terms of CO2 emissions. If India acts like this, it is certainly going to make a very positive dent on the problem of climate change globally.
Right, Mr. Rashmi. But let's, put into context the importance of energy, especially at a time when, for developing countries, and the need for this kind of energy. At what cost does it come? Is it too expensive? Does it hinder our progress? What is it? Because people would look for cheaper forms of energy. There's that debate, whether clean energy comes at the cost, is too expensive, and whether there's a form of climate justice that has to be ensured. But that debate is no longer valid, one would think, because this form of energy is becoming cheaper, much cheaper, and India is showing the way here too.
Absolutely. There are two dimensions to the problem here. One is that of assuring universal access to energy, and India's energy requirements are growing by the day as our population is growing. The standard of people of India is still at a much lower level compared to the rest of the world, and we have to improve the standard of living. Therefore, the energy consumption will certainly rise. So the first challenge is to ensure that everybody gets the right quantum of energy at in the most affordable and accessible manner, and that requires that we improve and increase our energy generation capacity across the board, and all possible sources of energy generation are tapped. But the other problem is that of protecting the environment through making a transition to cleaner sources of energy. So the problem of high cost of renewable energy or cleaner energy was there at least about a decade ago. But today the situation has changed drastically. In the wake of India's very ambitious announcement of renewable energy targets, the cost of solar has started falling. The wind energy is still higher than the solar, but the solar has the cost of solar energy is today much cheaper than even the coal-fired power. But that is not the end of the problem. The problem is that this has to be fed into the grid. Yes. And it has to be integrated into the grid so that it is accessible and transmitted across the transmission network and reaches every single consumer across the country, to the farmer, to the residential people in their houses, and the industries. So that integration requires that this renewable energy is available at 24 hours. Today, the solar power is available when the sun shines or the wind blows. We have to create actually energy storage systems, and this requires technological innovation. So the future of the clean energy lies in creating energy storage revolution, making the efficient batteries, efficient storage systems. The hydropowers or the hydro stations are also actually an energy storage system. So we have to create an integrated energy system based on the grid, which supplies energy across the country. And these are the twin challenges which we have to meet.
Then the question comes, has grid parity been achieved? Because the grid was providing electricity at a much cheaper rate, and now we are feeding all this into the grid. And that's the larger question, whether, at the end of the day, prices of electricity or energy will come down. then there is the cost-benefit analysis that ultimately works to the advantage of development. What's your view on this?
Yes, we will be able to do it provided we are able to bring about the systemic transformations, and we are able to handle the transmission network and also integrate the energy into the grid and reform the energy markets. As you can see, today the energy markets in India are divided, fragmented. The states have one energy policy, the center has another, and each one of them follows a different system of taxes and subsidies. The power generation, the contracts which the power generators have with the distributors have different time schedules. So there is certain degree of fragmentation and uncertainty in the energy market. We have to remove this. We have to deal with this technologically as well as systemically. On the technology front, as I said, we need to create an effective energy storage system which stores the renewable energy which is produced by the solar and the wind and then transmitted across the grid. But then the distribution side will need certain distribution energy market reforms as well, because the DISCOMs are financially stressed because of the stranded assets, the investments which have already gone into the carbon intensive energy generation capacities. They will have to be dealt with, and that financial stress has to be borne by somebody, and that is why the distribution companies are not able to come out of this problem. We will have to deal with them, and then if they have the freedom to supply energy at the cost at which they receive the energy from the generators, and they are able to cross-subsidize it, meet the costs in an innovative manner, then only we will be able to actually progress on this front. So it's a long-drawn process, but I think the future is bright. As long as there is intention, I think it can be done.
And the future, talking about the future and the present actually also to a large extent, is that transportation will be driven by electricity, and that would be a cleaner form of energy, which will ultimately lead to a huge drop in carbon emissions. So, in that direction, what do you think? The demand for electricity will increase rapidly, and the scaling up in terms of renewable energy to meet that kind of demand, is there, a sort of has it been planned appropriately?
Yeah, in the transportation sector, we are now talking about electric mobility.
Yes.
But that is for the urban consumers and the urban centric infrastructure. This is a good thing to happen. But more important than that is the railway network. And
the railway network has been already electric for quite some time.
Yes, and in fact now the Railway Ministry has announced its intention to achieve net zero carbon, completely decarbonize the railway transportation system by 2030 and move over to electric mobility completely, 100%. That is something remarkable, and the total emissions in India, 13% of that comes from transport sector. Railways play a very major part there, but the automobile sector, which also contributes to pollution in the cities and also contributes in a very large manner to the total emissions, that is a difficult nut to crack, because here we will have to look at the best possible solutions which can actually help environment and at the same time maintain the economic momentum. So we should now be targeting the two-wheelers, the three-wheelers, and the electric and the buses as a public transportation system, and we should aim at converting them into electric vehicles, so that these are the largest chunk of total emissions and total transportation system. And if we are able to make a transition here, I think the future will be brighter. Electric mobility is certainly something which will require not only technology, but also some kind of a fiscal and financial concession and support to begin with. Because again, like the coal-fired power sector, there's a stranded investment here. The automobile sector has already made investments, and which they would not be able to recover within a short time. But the intention of the government should be very clear. There must be a mandate to move over to electric mobility by a specific time schedule, and only then we will be able to bring about a transformation in the transport sector.
So we have largely been talking about the production side, of renewable energy. Let's talk a little bit about the consumption side also, because more efficient consumption leads to, a better, more energy efficient use of electricity in general. And we know that the LED program, which the Prime Minister has championed, is extremely good in that respect. It's brought down electricity consumption to a great extent across the country in households. Also, perhaps, just a better attitude towards the use of electricity. People are now careful about excessive use of electricity. To what extent is this, a change of mindset going to help in conserving energy, because energy conservation is also a way of the circular economy?
Yes, behavioral change is certainly very critical in demand management, more particularly in the energy sector, because the consumption of energy, whether it is in the residential houses or in commercial establishments or in the industrial area, there is a certain degree of change of behavior required, and people need to understand that we need to move over towards cleaner energy, even if we have to meet with certain difficulties or live with certain difficulties initially. At least the younger generation is now aware of this, but I think the critical thing to be tackled here is that we have to make it comfortable for the people to switch over to cleaner energy. And then its cost and price is certainly a very important issue, but it is not the only issue. And the energy efficiency is something which can be achieved at a much lower cost if people are conscious about it. And you cited the example of LED, which is an extremely good example. But LED also became successful on the back of a procurement model, which was financed initially by the government, and later on the consumers paid for it. So we have to build appropriate business models, and so that they are in tune with the behavioral expectations of the society. So the key thing is to marry the good technological solutions with appropriate business models, which people can adopt easily.
Let's talk a little bit more about collaborations as well, because the International Solar Alliance is a massive contribution that India has given to the world, and now we know that as of today, even Sweden has joined the International Solar Alliance. What do you think? Is this this alliance going to achieve more than just producing solar energy? It's going to change the way the world thinks about energy and bring in the focus of renewables, and also the whole concept of where we have to move away from polluting the environment, and bring in that whole idea of the circular economy, reuse, recycle, and the basic thing.
International Solar Alliance is an institution created by
India and France. That's right.
Prime Minister Modi and President Emmanuel Macron of France.
It was President Hollande at that time, I think. Yes. Now it's probably
yes. Now the importance of the ISA is that it has served to redirect the focus of the global community to the importance of renewable energy and the solar. Solar is the energy of the future, and this is what the ISA attempts to do. It is still a work in progress. It is an institution which is still growing. The more and more countries are joining ISA as the member, and so its importance is growing. The importance of solar energy as the source of clean energy in the future is growing, and the more members join it, it will gain strength, and the technological push and the financial support which is required to push cleaner energy across the world in different countries, this will also gain momentum. The ISA as an institution can basically create capacity, can hold the hands of weaker countries, smaller developing countries in Africa,
Right.
Asia, and then guide them, lead them into the direction of renewable energy.
True.
By providing them technological tools and sometimes the financial help. And that is what the ISA intends to do, and it's a great thing to happen for the global community.
True, and many countries that are in the Sun Belt, in a sense, are not countries that are, in the economic north of the world. So these are countries that can harness this resource, which is the sun, and utilize it. And if the technology is improved to a great extent, can actually be, net providers of electricity around and sort of generate some income as a result of that. I'm told that we are going to go live right now to the award ceremony, the CIRA award ceremony. Let's go across live now.
Recipients of this award are recognized for their leadership in sustainability and addressing climate, and for advancing energy solutions and policies for energy access, affordability, and environmental stewardship. It is our great honor to present this year's Global Energy and Environment Leadership Award to the Prime Minister of India, the Honorable Shri Narendra Modi. As the Prime Minister of the world's largest democracy and one of its most dynamic economies, Prime Minister Modi has been guiding India towards economic growth, energy security, and environmental stewardship in this age of energy transition. In my new book, The New Map, I devote a special section to India and what has been accomplished in the country because of India's importance in the world economy and as a home of more than 1.3 billion people that is defining its distinctive paths of energy transition. As a report from the Indian government put it, energy is the mainstay of the development process of any economy, and that is surely true of India. As India strives to meet its climate and environmental objectives, it also needs growing energy supplies to power economic growth and promote equity and rising living standards that will bring hundreds of millions out of poverty and into the middle class, one of the largest middle classes in the world. In my book, I quote a very striking comment I heard the Honorable Prime Minister make in one of our first meetings about what he called the need for new thinking. He has brought this thinking and broad perspectives to his government's policies on climate and energy. Under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, the Indian government is pursuing an energy agenda that is diverse, market-based, inclusive, and focused on environmental sustainability. India is pushing aggressively into renewable energies with very ambitious targets for wind and solar. It's also the home of the International Solar Alliance. Next generation fuels are also high on India's energy agenda. These include hydrogen and biofuels, with the latter rooted in farming villages across the country. The Indian government has focused strongly on energy efficiency and the circular economy. Just one example. Under the government's flagship efficiency program, more than 360 million LED bulbs have been distributed. The new thinking in energy has included a shift towards markets and to reforms that encourage domestic and international investment to increase supplies, foster innovation, and keep the country growing. Prime Minister Modi is shifting India towards a gas-based economy. Doing so will transform the use of energy across the Indian economy, reduce urban pollution, and unlock new opportunities across the nation. Central to his government's agenda is poverty alleviation through energy inclusion. Under Prime Minister Modi's leadership, India launched a clean cooking fuel program that has provided families that sit below the poverty line with LPG for their household cooking needs. These are all tremendous accomplishments. They also require partnership with private industry and investment, which is why it's so important that business conditions in India have improved under Prime Minister Modi. In the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business rankings, India since 2014 has jumped 79 positions from 142 in 2014 to 63 in 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, the story is clear. Across the new map of energy, Prime Minister Modi is leading India down paths that lead to environmental sustainability, energy diversity, greater reliability, innovation, and support economic growth. For these reasons, and for the vision that he's promoting, and for the vision that he's implementing, we are honored to present the 2021 CERAWeek Global Energy and Environment Leadership Award to the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Shri Narendra Modi. Honorable Prime Minister Modi, many congratulations, and we look forward to listening to your message to the CERAWeek community, to India, and to the world.
Thank you, Dr. Dan Yergin. Thank you, Dr. Dan Yergin, for this kind introduction. Thank you all distinguished guests for being here. Namaskar. It is with great humility that I accept the CERAWeek Global Energy and Environment Leadership Award. I dedicate this award to the people of our great motherland India. I dedicate this award to the glorious tradition of our land that has shown the way when it comes to caring for the environment. Friends, this award recognizes environmental leadership. About leadership, it is commonly said that the best way to show it is through action. There is no doubt that when it comes to care for the environment, the people of India are leaders. This has been the case for centuries. In our culture, nature and divinity are closely linked. Our gods and goddesses are associated with some or other tree and animal. The trees and animals are also sacred. You can pick literature from any state in any language. You will find many examples of the close bond people and nature have enjoyed. Friends, in Mahatma Gandhi, we have one of the greatest environment champions to have ever lived. If humanity had followed the path given by him, we would not face many of the problems we do today. I would urge you all to visit Mahatma Gandhi's home in the coastal city of Porbandar, Gujarat. Next to his home, you will get very practical lessons on water conservation. There are underground tanks constructed over 200 years ago. They were built to save rainwater. Friends, climate change and calamities are major challenges today. Both are interlinked. There are two ways to fight them. One, and that is through policies, laws, rules, and orders. These have their own importance, no doubt. I can share with you some examples. Share of non-fossil sources in India's installed capacity of electricity has grown by 38% now.
We have moved to Bharat 6 emission norms since April 2020. This is equal to Euro 6 fuel. India is working to increase the share of natural gas from the current 6% to 15% by 2030. LNG is being promoted as a fuel. We just launched a national hydrogen mission last month for use of hydrogen as fuel. Recently, a scheme called PM Kusum was announced. This will promote an equitable and decentralized model of solar energy generation. But there is something beyond the world of policies, laws, rules, and orders. The most powerful way to fight climate change is behavioral change. There is a very famous story many of you would have heard of. A small child was given a torn world map. The child was told to fix it, thinking it could never be done. But the child actually did successfully. When asked how the child did so, the child said, at the back of the world map was a figure of a man. All the child did was to assemble the figure of the man. And because of that, the world map also got assembled. The message is clear. Let us fix ourselves and the world will be a better place. Friends, this spirit of behavioral change is a key part of our traditional habits, which teaches us consumption with compassion. A mindless throwaway culture is not a part of our ethos. Look at our farming methods or our foods. Look at our mobility patterns or in energy consumption patterns. I am proud of our farmers who are constantly using modern techniques of irrigation. There is growing awareness on improving soil health and reducing use of pesticides. Today, the world is focusing on fitness and wellness. There is a growing demand for healthy and organic food. India can drive this global change through our spices, our Ayurveda products and more. Likewise, take eco-friendly mobility. You'll be delighted to know that in India, we are working on a metro network in 27 towns and cities. Friends, for large-scale behavioral change, we need to offer solutions that are innovative, affordable, and powered by public participation. Let me give you an example. The people of India decided to embrace LED bulbs on a scale that has never been seen before. As on 1st March 2021, around 37 million LED bulbs are being used. This has saved cost and energy. Over 38 million tons carbon dioxide have been reduced per year. There is another example of India's Give It Up movement. A simple request was made to people to give up their LPG subsidy for the benefit of the more needy people. Several people across India voluntarily gave up their subsidy. This played a major role in India being able to provide smoke-free kitchens to lakhs of households. LPG coverage in India has seen a remarkable growth from 55% in 2014 to 99.6% today. women have been the major gainers due to this. These days, I am seeing one more very positive change. Waste to wealth is becoming the buzzword in India. Our citizens are coming up with unique recycling models in diverse sectors. This would give a boost to the circular economy. Our country is boosting waste to wealth generation under sustainable alternative towards affordable transportation initiatives. 5,000 compressed biogas plants will be set up by 2024 with a production target of 15 MMT. It would help the environment and further human empowerment. Friends, there is growing acceptance to ethanol across India. Based on people's response, we have decided to advance the target of 20% blending of ethanol in petrol by 2025 from the earlier 2030. Friends, it would make you all happy that over the last 7 years, India's forest cover has grown significantly. The population of lions, tigers, leopards, and waterfowls has grown. These are great indicators of positive behavioral changes. It is these changes that convince us that India is well on track to achieve its Paris Agreement targets well before the target date of 2030. Friends, India's vision for environmental transitions includes working with like-minded countries. The initial success of the International Solar Alliance has demonstrated how serious India is when it comes to making efforts for a better planet. We will keep making such efforts in the future. This is in line with Mahatma Gandhi's principle of trusteeship. At the core of trusteeship are collectiveness, compassion, and responsibility. Trusteeship also means using resources responsibly. Mahatma Gandhi rightly said, and I quote, "We may utilize the gifts of nature just as we choose, but in her books, the debits are always equal to the credits." Unquote. Nature keeps simple balance sheet. Whatever is available or credited can be used or debited. But this has to be distributed properly, because if we overconsume resources, we are snatching it from someone else. It is on a similar lines that India is speaking about climate justice to help fight climate change. Friends, now is the time to think logically and ecologically. After all, this is not about me or you. It is about our planet's future. We owe this to our coming generations. I once again thank you for the award. Namaste.
So that was Prime Minister Narendra Modi there speaking at length about India's policy, which was of trusteeship based on the Mahatma Gandhi model. Behavioral change has been the key, and results are being seen very clearly in the fact that the numbers of lions, tigers, other wildlife has continued to increase, forest cover has increased, waterfalls have increased. So there's something that is going right. And let's go back to Mr. Rashmi. He's with us still. You heard that speech, Mr. Rashmi. So what are your first reactions? Maybe your mic is on mute, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, go ahead, sir. Yeah.
The Prime Minister's statement was extremely wide-ranging, and it's remarkable how he has encapsulated so many thoughts in such a short time. The first thing which he emphasized was India's historical cultural traditions of protecting environment, which is embedded in our psyche and in our culture. But we need to give it a new thrust now. And he talked of, at the end he was talking of trusteeship, the idea of climate justice. But before that, he touched upon a few remarkable things which now India will be doing, apart from the fact that the India is well on its way to achieving its nationally determined contribution quantified targets well ahead of 2030. That's what he said. In terms of renewable energy, we'll be able to do it much earlier, because we have already reached a level of 38% in terms of share of renewable energy of total power generation capacity. And we have to do this by 2030 in terms of 40%. So we are already ahead of it. He's talked about growing forests. And 5 things which struck me, which he talked about, is something very significant. He said that the share of gas in the energy profile will be raised from 6 to 15%. This is something which he had also said in the World Sustainable Development Conference organized by Terry a few weeks ago. The second thing which he said was that India has announced a national hydrogen mission. This was also mentioned in the budget by the Honorable Finance Minister.
Yes.
He talked about circular economy, waste to wealth, and this is something which again India is proud of. India is one of the highest recycling societies in the world, but we have to do something much more in terms of single-use plastics, and in terms of managing our waste. We have to do something more. This requires good business models and good fiscal strategies. But the fact that the Prime Minister mentioned about this is a clear indication that government is serious about it. He talked about, interestingly, he talked about ethanol, 20% blending in petrol by 2025, advancing the target by 5 years, which is extremely significant because biofuels are going to be the key transportation fuels in the future. If we have to move away from petrol, fossil fuels, biofuels have to be the key for this kind of transition. And he was talking about eco-friendly mobility, not just electric mobility. Eco-friendly mobility for which initiative has been taken in 27 cities. This is remarkable because he was specifically talking about CNG, compressed natural gas, as the transportation fuel, so that we can have affordable transportation. So these are all interlinked issues, and very interesting. He talked of the successes which government has achieved in the area of renewable energy in Bharat 6.
Bharat Stage 6 which is equivalent to Euro 6. Yes.
In terms of LPG coverage from 55 to 99% in the entire all the country, which is really remarkable. Universal access to electricity, which is again almost 100%. So some of the things where the government can duly take pride. He mentioned that, but he also mentioned the areas where the new initiatives are being planned, and that's where he said that we need to think logically and ecologically to be able to keep this the momentum. And he made 2 very important distinctions, that it is not enough to just have policies or rules and laws, but we must have a behavioral change in the people. And he talked about culture, and he said that the behavioral change is the key, again, for which many initiatives have been taken. So he said that India is a country where both the policy changes as well as behavioral changes are taking place, and we'll be able to carry on this momentum with the kind of initiatives which the government has.
Indeed, and quite an interesting analogy also about behavioral change. Mr. Daniel Yergin was also talking about his book called The Map, and the Prime Minister talked about the map, which the child had put together, and it turned out to be, basically it was a human being, and when the human being came together, the map came together. So it was ultimately saying that, behavioral change is what can save the planet. And that is, and he, of course, linked that, as you did through various other means, as also to the concept of trusteeship, because if we continue to use too many resources, we are stealing it from the next generation, from somebody else, and that is the whole idea of climate justice. We did talk a little bit about climate justice before the Prime Minister's speech, but I think the Prime Minister explained it very clearly.
Yeah, this applies more to the international policy making than domestic, but within the boundaries of the country as well. The significance lies in the fact that we have to use energy responsibly. We use this word that we must use the resources responsibly, which Gandhiji has emphasized, and the solution lies in fixing ourselves. Let us fix ourselves. That was the message.
Yes, indeed. And if we, now demystify a little bit because we know that this is a holistic policy. The question is that, our cities are large, they are growing, there's massive urbanization. There's also the move to change our cities into smart cities, to try and bring them as efficient as, make them as efficient as possible. So all this is a process of change. How do you see, how do you see, look at the challenge ahead in terms of, the rapid urbanization within our country? Many of our cities have been the most polluted cities in the world as a result of this rapid urbanization, and it is a tough ask when, one has to try and make this, make our cities less polluted.
Yes, urbanization is the biggest challenge which India will be facing in the next 2 or 3 decades, and the larger part of the country's population is going to reside in the urban settlements. Today it is 33%. By the mid-century it will be more than 50% almost. So therefore we must plan better for the cities, and all the urban conglomerations have 3 distinct problems. One of managing their transport systems, the second is of the buildings, the infrastructure, the kind of infrastructure which they build, and third is of managing their waste. In all these 3 areas, we have to be imaginative and innovative. For transportation, we have to move over to electric mobility. Today, the Prime Minister talked of ecological mobility, which means not just electric, but also biofuels. And then for this, we need to plan our infrastructure, our traffic systems, our buildings. We must redesign our urban settlements in a manner that it consumes much less, is less congestion and consumes less fuel. For the buildings, the biggest challenge will that be of the cooling. Because of the climate change, there is so much of heat stress. There are extreme events, and the heat stress is going to increase in future. In fact, there is a concept of heat island. This is going to be a very, very major challenge. And we need to create a cooling system in the residential and commercial buildings, which is both economical and energy efficient. So creating low carbon infrastructure, both in terms of building and cooling it. And lastly, managing the waste which comes out. All kinds of waste. The waste needs to be segregated at source and then managed either in form of composting or in form of the incineration, or converting this into something else which is if it is recyclable and reusable. So managing the waste, which our municipal corporations have failed completely across the country. It's not just a problem of Delhi or Bombay, but all the civic bodies have not succeeded well. So these are the 3 challenges, and we will need. There are specific initiatives, not just under smart cities, but there are other programs of the government where this can be done. There are laws in place, and as PM was saying, it needs behavioral change. But I think there is, apart from the laws and behavioral change, it also needs business models which make it affordable and financially successful.
Let's talk a little bit about that. Now, the whole concept of biofuels, for one, is going to help the farming sector in some way, and the LNG as well as hydrogen, as fuels. How effective are they going to be, in let's say bringing costs down?
The biofuels are costly at the moment, so that is the biggest challenge. The second challenge is that of the feedstock, availability of enough feedstock to be able to generate this kind of biofuel. But as far as the blending requirement in petrol is concerned, I think there is enough feedstock available, either from the agricultural sources or from the municipal waste. We will be able to generate ethanol or biodiesel, which I think we will be able to meet the requirement. But the problem is creating enough manufacturing capacity and at a cost which people can afford, where it can compete, where price parity can be achieved. And there is still a very large distance to be covered there. The Indian oil companies have been asked by the government to procure biofuel at a particular cost. So there is some degree of assurance. So meeting this target of 20% will require some kind of financial support in the beginning until an economic scale is achieved. But I will also refer to the other aspect of biofuels, which is aviation fuel. Our entire aviation industry runs on jet fuel, and for replacing that we have no alternative. That also requires biofuel, and there the cost differential is almost 2 times. So we will have to look at that as well, not just for automobiles, but also for the aviation sector. So we need to create a regime for sustainable fuels based on mandate like 20%.
And clearly systems are being put in place. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Rashmi, for joining us and enlightening us on the award that was given to the Prime Minister, the Leadership and Energy Award of the Cambridge Energy Research Associates Week 2021. It's a prestigious award and clearly showing India's leadership in terms of energy conservation and a move towards the circular economy. Thanks very much for being with us. Namaskar.